to another episode of Ordinary People Podcast, where we talk to ordinary people with extraordinary stories. I'm your host, Alan the Great, and today we're doing a special episode. This is an episode that I've been waiting to do for quite some time now, and I'm proud to present this episode. This is the official panel episode, where we're going to talk about police brutality as well as issues with the community and police officers being killed. We're going to talk about the election, how we felt about the 2016 presidential election, as well as racism in America. We're going to give our opinion on it. And to help discuss our opinion, I asked two previous guests to come back and join me for this conversation. I want to first introduce you the first guest I had on the Ordinary People podcast. You might remember his episode where we talked about drug addiction, how to overcome drug addiction. I'm proud to present to you Mr. Andre Ryder.
Hello, everybody.
Other guest I would like to introduce to you is a guest that was on the second episode of Ordinary People podcast. He discussed he's a life coach, and he discussed how to start your own business, how to motivate yourself, set goals, and set a foundation. My other extraordinary guest is Mr. Bruce Dorsey. Say hello, Mr. Dorsey.
Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
Today's episode, we're going to start off. We usually start off with current events. Like, when you listen to Ordinary People podcast, we usually start off with current events. But since this whole episode is going to be based off of current events and things that's been going on in the news, I guess we should just jump right into it. One of the first things I wanted to ask you guys about is something I read moments ago before we started the podcast. Fidel Castro, former dictator and leader of Cuba, died today. I want to ask you guys to give your opinion on it. Start off with both individuals giving your opinion on it. Which one you want to start?
I'll start if you mind. For 17 years, I worked with a Cuban guy by the name of Ray Rayner, and he told me about how he got here. He got here on not a very big boat, him and his wife, and she was pregnant. They made it to Florida, but he kind of explained to me that night when he actually left Cuban waters, how difficult it was. I guess their police or whatever was always like patrolling their banks, so to speak.
Mm.
But he hated Fidel Castro.
Right.
He literally, if you don't mind me saying,
No, that's
he
fine.
literally said, if in fact he saw Fidel Castro today, he would blow his brains out.
Mm.
He hated him.
Mr. Dorsey.
Wow.
Give
Yeah. No. I really, although I know who Fidel Castro is, I really don't have much knowledge as far as his works. I haven't heard too many good things about him.
Mm.
And the only thing I can really say is that, the energy you put out there is what comes back.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I.
Absolutely. And just to speak my opinion on it, Fidel Castro, who ruled Cuba, took over in a coup back in, can't remember the exact date, but ruled Cuba for a while. And I didn't personally live through the beginning stages of Cold War, but anyone who lived through those stages know that was a very rough time in America where we were threatened to be annihilated due to Russian weapons going to Cuba. Fidel Castro really put a hurting on his people. The economy of Cuba as well as the people of Cuba. Many people fled there. I can go on and on about it. I mean, where I don't wish death on anybody, I have to basically go along with Mr. Dorsey's words as well as Mr. Ryder's words in saying the energy you put out is what you eventually get back. So, my listeners, please be careful about the energy you put out and try to leave a positive mark on the world so when you leave, people have positive things to say about you and won't struggle to find those words. Now, we're going to move on from that because that's not the reason we're here today. What I wanted to also discuss is, and I want to get right into it, the 2016 election has come and passed. I talked to both of you gentlemen. By the way, both of these gentlemen, this is their first time actually meeting each other. So this is a pretty this moment we didn't discuss our feelings I talked to both of you gentlemen off the air about it, but I never asked you how did you feel and what do you feel about the election. So I want to start the conversation off with this. Mr. Dorsey, can you start us off with how did you feel about the election, the 2016 election, presidential election?
Well, honestly, Alan, first I want to say thank you for allowing me to be on the podcast. The work that you do, is so important. You really give um, a lot of people a chance to share their story in hopes that it'll bless somebody else. So I want to
Absolutely.
thank you for allowing me to do that. As far as the question goes, I really didn't have much. Um, I didn't really think too much about the presidency one way or the other. I mean, I both the candidates I didn't support
Hmm.
for my own personal reasons. And I guess I'm just to a point where no matter who becomes president, I know that ultimately it's up to me to be able to create my own destiny and improve my own existence.
Absolutely. Mr. Ryder, how did you feel about the 2016 election?
I know my wife. I would tell my wife from time to time during the election that I believe that Trump was going to win.
Mm.
Um,
Why did you believe that?
I don't know if it was because of uh, how they were attacking Hillary or things that she actually done,
Hmm.
with the servers and things. I have a brother named Jerome who was in the service, and he said if he had disclosed information like she had, he would have been kicked out of service, prosecuted. So, I really don't have any feelings about it either. Although I did vote for Hillary
Hmm.
because I just think that Trump is a clown. I'm not politically politically correct at
No, you're
all in
fine. No,
any
you're
No.
fine.
capacity.
You're fine. Speak freely how you feel.
Yeah.
But in all actuality, I really don't think that they've done anything for me over the years. Um, Not at all. So,
Okay.
I mean, I vote, but
Mm.
that's just how I feel.
Okay, I understand. My immediate feeling after the election was I watched and I had a discussion with a lot of people, and one of the things I said to him was, Trump's going to win. You're probably saying, why would you say that? And why do you feel that way? I looked at things, I analyzed it, and this one time I wish I was wrong. I started going through every presidency, and I seen a pattern going on. I said, Americans vote on their fears. Think about 9/11. You think about the attacks. You think about what was going on in Iraq, and it was better to have Bush in office. As many people might say, no, he wasn't good. He wasn't the right guy. He made you feel more protected. And women can speak more to this, where you find a man that can protect you and that you feel can protect you. Bush might not have been the right candidate, but he may have been considered between him and John Kerry the best candidate to protect the country at the time. Then you move on to when Barack Obama was elected. You think about the state of the economy and things. Who was better suited to fix the economy at the time? Barack Obama was better suited to fix the economy, so of course, better election, better person to fit the job. Now we move to more modern time and why I felt that Trump was going to win. We look at one of the biggest issues this country face, and we'll try to get into this, but immigration and the problem with terrorist attacks. Well, most people say the servers, and they talk about the servers. In my opinion, it was more of immigration as being a top priority for people I talked to and an issue that people had. So immediately you see Trump speaks to that type of mindset, that type of thought, and trying to find a solution to that problem. So immediately I said, people are going to vote for him. People are going to vote for him because he mirrors what people are thinking. Now, my personal opinion, I'm sorry to make this a long way around, but my personal opinion was I felt sick. For a moment, I'm not going to lie, I felt sick when I seen Trump elected, and I'll tell you why. I was embarrassed by our country for the first time in my life. 34 years old, I was embarrassed by our country, and the reason is because the way he paraded around on the media in front of the stage, the world stage. I didn't want other countries, other people to look at all us Americans, excuse me, and think that this is a representation of us, me, my family. it's not a true representation of us. Then I wondered, what does this mean for my sons, my future, my son's future? Then I looked at my wife, and she was even more distraught about it. And I looked to her and said, and I'm gonna echo once again what Mr. Dorsey said. I told her these words: "We are in control of our future. Not Donald Trump, not Hillary Clinton. We're in control of our future and our destination of our future. So it's up to us to make the choices, and we just continue on doing what we have set to do, and what's our plan. We're gonna be just fine. We're not worried about who's president. It doesn't matter if I'm not doing my part." So that was my thought on it. Anybody want to chime in on my opinion or how I felt about it?
Yeah, no, I definitely can wholeheartedly understand, Alan, your thoughts, and I share them. I was also going to go back and, as far as the who won the presidential election, um, a lot of people have to understand also out there that a lot of people think that it's about the popular vote,
Hmm.
and it's not. The
Right.
electoral vote decides the presidency, and
Right.
that's
Absolutely.
Right.
that's a problem right off the bat. But
Yes.
Right.
that's so we have to understand, they get us caught up into, a lot of, they get us caught up into the fact that we really decide the presidency, and that's just not the case. And the other thing I wanted to say was, uh, I do support. Although I didn't vote for those two candidates, I did vote.
Absolutely.
I just didn't support any of those two for my own reasons. But
Mm.
I think that right now in this country they have everybody divided,
Absolutely.
and
Hmm.
that's another problem. I mean, they have us wrapped up into, they have races and cultures, and
Hmm.
they have everybody against each other. They have our law enforcement against us. They have, I mean, just from what I've observed, it's been an orchestrated plan to divide
When
Right.
and
you say
conquer.
when you say against us, what exactly do you mean?
Well,
Excuse me.
no, no,
But
I was going to say, yeah. Actually, I was talking about government and we the people
Okay.
mm,
is what I was talking about. And just without getting into too much detail, I think there are a lot of forces at work here behind the scenes that are, they just have their own calculated agenda that they've been organizing since the beginning.
mm,
And so I just think that, you know people pay to put certain messages out there on the media.
mm,
They know that as people, we are driven by, we're outer driven versus inner driven. So everything we see through TV, through the radio, everything that's said, they know that it goes. We take it right in.
mm.
Right.
We don't even question whether it even makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I think that it's done purposely.
Absolutely. I had
I have to agree. I have to agree with you
sorry.
there.
Did you have something you want to add
No,
to it?
disagree.
Um, it's an interesting perspective that you said that on the ordinary opinion segment of the Ordinary People podcast when I talked about 2016 election. One of the things I was trying to say to my listeners and I was pushing to the listeners was don't rely on the media, meaning the news, commercials, to tell you who you should vote for, who you shouldn't vote for. Don't use that as
Right.
your only source of information on who to make your choice for. Don't use your best friend as a source of information. Get out and find out who that candidate is. Find out what that candidate truly stands for. And I agree that most people they rely too heavily on what's sold to them. And the interesting thing about that is media is to sell you a product. Now, whether that product's good for you or not, we can argue either way. You know what I mean? Pepsi might be a great beverage, but it's not necessarily good for you. You know what I mean? But it's constantly marketed to you, it's pushed to you. When you turn cartoons on for your kids, you'll notice that toys are constantly pushed on you. Does that mean that your children need those toys?
Right.
No. But it's up to us to make that choice to decide on what's good for us or not. And with the election, I want to also touch on separation. You brought up separation, Mr. Dorsey. What is do you feel this election has caused more separation amongst us as people, one of the stats I have read and seen was that racist acts as far as marking up people's cars, their houses, racial attacks have increased by I think it was I want to say 11%. Don't quote me on the exact numbers since Donald Trump's been elected. Do you feel like the results of the election has caused us to be more divided?
Well, Alan, I tell you, I don't think that the election itself, in and of itself,
Mm,
caused it. I think that it was something that had been brewing for some time,
right.
It
and
was
I
already
think that
there. It
um,
was already there.
you were right, right, exactly.
Okay.
And I think basically it just fueled it.
Right.
It just fueled it.
Mr. Ryder, what you feel about that? Do you think
I,
it divided us as a country? You said it
it
was
was
already
it was
there.
it was already there. It was already there.
So what do you feel like made it like bubble to
Now,
the surface? Like, 'cause it
now,
seems like it just came to the surface.
of course, you have those organizations, the white supremacists, so to speak.
Right.
That's all they was waiting for somebody like Trump
Mm,
to be elected,
right.
so that they could. But it's already been there. They only traded to me. They only traded their sheets in
Mm,
for suits, man.
right.
It's there. It's there.
Okay. Um, I got a controversial opinion on racism. I want to get both of you to chime in on this. One of my issues with racism, I say to people, and with the election with Donald Trump being elected, is um, it's more about money than it is race. It's about the color of green rather than it's black and white. Reason I say that is I look at the people on top and I say it's interesting that they put racism on us and constantly throw racism in our face, and I feel like it's a diversion from a bigger problem or a bigger issue or something going on. You know, if you look at magicians, they have this thing called sleight of hands, where while you're paying attention to their hands, the trick is happening somewhere else. I feel like the same thing is happening right now with us. We're focusing so much on racial tensions and being divided as a country, as people between white, black, Asian, Latino, that we can't see the bigger issue while the people who are on top are looking at only green in bottom lines, spreadsheets. Do either one you agree or disagree with my opinion?
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I just I no, I do agree, Alan, as far as it's always it's always about money.
Right.
But the thing about it is this is the problem. Again, when we talk about you reap what you sow, the
Mm-hmm.
energy you put out comes back. Um, the law of cause and effect, all those kind of things. The problem is that our country is no different than Rome was, Greece, and some of
Mm-hmm.
these other conglomerates of yesteryears. I mean, the only difference, really, in my opinion, between us and them is our technology age. But I mean, as far as the greed,
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
corruption, everything. I mean, it's that. I mean, listen, we're we are so ignorant. We've become so ignorant and arrogant,
Mm-hmm.
and we think that we're different. It won't happen to us. And
Right.
and 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 that's my biggest concern is that we're headed for a fall because we're repeating the same thing the other big conglomerates, and it's nothing that unless we start sticking together, unless we understand that we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, see, because again, we are conditioned to let our physical senses rule us.
Right.
And what are our physical senses? Hear, smell, see, taste, touch.
Right.
We're conditioned to let that rule us. So I look at you and I see black. I look at somebody else, I see white or yellow and the bottom line is we're all the same.
Right.
We're spiritual beings. We live in a physical body. We've been given an intellect, an ability to think.
Mm-hmm.
So at the core,
That's
we're
right.
all the same.
That's absolutely true.
But it's our ignorance of being
Mm-hmm.
again those physical senses.
Right.
Because you look like you're a different color, I say we're different.
Right.
Because you look like whether you're taller, bigger, fatter. I mean, we're all energy.
Right.
So I mean, we just have to start. I think we have to start learning how to exercise our ability to think. I think
Absolutely.
we covered that in another
Yes, we
podcast.
did.
Exercise your ability to think on your own, and
Absolutely.
stop letting other people tell you what you should be thinking.
Absolutely.
This guy, this guy
He's
is
a good
dead
guy,
on,
right?
man.
I mean,
This is a great
This
conversation
guy
here.
is
It's good.
dead on, man.
Absolutely, and you know, it's we did cover it in another episode, but I can't say it enough. You're absolutely right that we definitely have to start thinking. What I say about racism is, in my opinion on racism, I don't care who you are, you're black, white, Latino, Asian, I don't care. If you're racist, in my opinion, is you're ignorant. You're an ignorant person because you're hating somebody because you don't like the color of their skin or you don't like their gender or their sexual preference. If that's your sole cause of hating somebody, you have to ask a question to yourself. How much do you like yourself? And what do you feel about yourself that I can just look at you, not never talk to you, know nothing about you, but immediately just hate you? What does that say about me? And with that being said, let's segue into away from the election. Let's talk about racism in America. Let's talk about it. One of the issues, in fact, not issues, I had a conversation. I want to let you guys know a personal conversation I had. Here's the backstory to this conversation I'm about to have with you guys, and what the story I'm about to tell you. I eat lunch with a 55-year-old white woman for the last 9 years. 5 days out of the week, we eat lunch. We have many conversations. Very down to earth white woman. She comes from West Virginia, and she's very business minded. Now she gives me a lot of business tips, money tips, that sort of thing. She always calls me. She talks to me like I'm her son. We eat lunch every day. After the election, before the election, we got on the conversation of race, and I want you guys to join in on this conversation. We got on a conversation of race, and she said something very interesting to me. She said, "Why are you guys so angry? Why are you guys protesting?" And I said, it's the things we got going on. It's the police brutality. It's like, look at what we're dealing with in this country. Look where the history of this country. And she said to me, well, why don't you guys? Slavery happened hundreds of years ago. You didn't live through slavery. Your mother and father didn't live through slavery. Why is it that you guys are still holding on to slavery? And it was a very interesting subject. And my response to her was, the Holocaust happened, what, 60, 70 years ago? Why are Jewish people still holding on to the Holocaust? When is it a time for you or another person or the oppressor to tell you when should you get over it? There is none. Then I remember I brought up the fact that my mom, you, I'm probably sure you, been through some of the civil rights era and may not been through the meteor part of it, but experienced some of that racism head on. What is you guys' opinion on that conversation I had?
I actually remember the martial law
Mm,
part back in the '60s when they had the National Guards patrol the city of Wilmington
mm,
when Martin Luther King was killed. So,
mm,
uh, as far as the racism part, I've experienced it. I worked at a refinery for 17 years, and I was called a nigger
mm,
every day. And your mother could tell you this because I used to call her and say, I really want to hurt somebody.
mm,
And I pretty much came this close to actually hurting somebody, hurting one of the guys up there on the job, man. But when I went through my recovery, I had a recovery coach say to me, let it go because you weren't the only one who went through that.
mm.
wow,
Some powerful words.
Let it
that's
go
profound.
because you was not the only one that has gone through, that particular kind of racism.
Right.
So I still deal with it and struggle with it right now.
Mm,
I see some injustices. I'm at work. I see it every day,
mm,
even at work. I see some black folks get kicked out of the driving center, so to speak. And when the whites do the same thing,
mm.
you know, nothing happens.
Do you feel like it's white privilege that allows them
I
to
don't.
do the same thing and not get the same results?
I'm not gonna say it's that, but that's who run the place.
Mm.
That's who run it.
Wow.
Mr. Dorsey, you something you want to
Wow.
add to it?
No, yeah, very, very, very profound words. I mean, again, I like Mr. Ryder. I've experienced a little bit of it all. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you know, growing up being called, you know, those type of words,
Right.
and I did a lot of fighting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you know, now I've and actually speaking of that, it makes me think about a lot of the times where not only was I followed in the store, but I was actually accused.
Amen.
But I mean, actually accused.
Mm.
You did it. Where is it? And at the time I was a young man, and in my I guess I was probably in my early 20s at the time, long time ago, and you know, I got upset, and of course I proved my innocence, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went home and I called my dad. At the time he lived in New Jersey, and I told him what happened. He said, "Son, you handled it all wrong." He said, "You shouldn't have got mad. You shouldn't have, you shouldn't have." He said, "All you had to do," he said, "was go and once you proved to him and presented the documentation, the receipts that you paid for the items." He said, "then you should have sued him." He said, he said, because getting upset about it and all that's not gonna, that's only gonna potentially get you in trouble.
Right.
He said you should have tell him to call the police.
Mm-hmm.
Then you prove you didn't do it, and then you should have just sued him.
Absolutely.
It's but it's again it's ignorance.
Right.
It's ignorance. I mean, racism is to me it's one of the worst forms of ignorance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder. Did you want to
I was
chime
just
back
going
in
to,
on it?
agree with them on, when I was in the store a few times, and
Mm-hmm.
the same thing happened to me. Literally being followed throughout the store. But somebody told me I do this a lot.
Right.
I always clutch my hands as if I have something in them.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I was told that several times, man. And I noticed my son Zion does the same thing
Right.
when he walks. He clutches his hands.
Mm-hmm.
And a few times I've actually seen some folks look at me
Mm-hmm.
as if I did. So very, mindful
Right.
of trying not to do that so much. But in the stores, been followed to the point where I had to pull my money out just to let them know that I got money to pay for my things.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have to go through that, but I did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and before you actually go on, I wanted to say too. I was thinking back of the point Mr. Ryder made as far as you know, as far as us as African Americans, we don't own these places.
Right.
So I mean, I talked to a couple coworkers too, not too long ago, and they are Caucasian, and they kind of feel the same way in terms of they feel like they're getting beat up on because they're white or they're Caucasian,
Mm.
and they are good. They feel like they're good people. They didn't have anything to do with it,
Mm-hmm.
and they feel like everything the media throws out there is making it seem like all Caucasians are
Race.
are privileged, racist, and some of them feel like, listen, I don't have much. I'm
Right.
definitely not privileged.
Right.
But see again, here's the point that I'm making. Um, as far as somebody saying, why can't we get over it?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we listen? When we keep experiencing the same thing
Mm.
that went on hundreds of years ago.
Right.
I mean, as far as I know, when I look around, I still don't see many of us as African Americans that own anything. I don't see
Right.
us in power.
Right.
Who else is? I mean, who else is a?
Mm-hmm.
But again, I believe that we have the God-given ability to be able to create our own destiny. People can throw up roadblocks
Mm-hmm.
and challenges, but I believe that we have the ability to do that. But I think what I try to do is harness the positive energy I have with other like-minded people with the same energy
Mm.
and leverage that together for a common goal.
Right.
And you're much more powerful and effective
Makes
when you can
sense.
do that. But one problem we have is we as African Americans don't in a lot of cases we are struggling with a lot of internal issues that we let prevent us from doing that,
Yes.
from showing each other love, from me extending my hand to my brothers and sisters,
Mm.
and that could be brothers and sisters of all races. But right now we're talking specifically African Americans. So
Right. Right.
yeah, I think that we can be our own worst enemy too.
Absolutely. You touched on a lot of good points that I want to get. I definitely want to get into and talk about. I want to share personally a story that I personally deal with every day of my life. I work in an office. I'm not going to specify the company I work for. One of the things I deal with on a regular basis is walking around my office, being a young black man and 6 feet tall, 212 pounds. I feel like I work around a lot of older white Caucasian people, and what I notice about the women, they get nervous when they're walking around me, especially during the stairwell where I take the back stairwell to go out to my car every day. I notice they walk a little faster, they clutch their purse a little tighter when they see me coming. If I'm walking through the office, I feel like a need to let them know I'm not a threat by not apologizing, but um, saying hello. You know what I mean? Try to spark conversation, try to smile, just to show that I'm not a threat. And it feels uncomfortable to me at times because I feel like I'm trying to make them uncomfortable and let them know I'm not menacing. But should I personally feel that way at work? No, I probably shouldn't. But that's one of the issues that we deal with on a regular basis, and it's sad that we have to deal with it. But Mr. Dorsey, one of the things you spoke on, I want to bring this up in the subject. One of the things you said is we as black people, we don't um, we don't reach out for each other's hand. We have trust issues. We don't want to help each other. We don't stick together. Um, I don't know if either one of you heard this. Damon Dash, former record mogul, business mogul, he had a conversation on a radio show. It was a hostile conversation where he was talking about we need to be bosses. We need to step up and own our own businesses, and we need to not necessarily want to work for somebody. Like you said, create your own. If you work somewhere 10 years, why can't you own a radio station? Why can't you own a bigger company? It met a lot of controversy because some of the people who were working at the radio station didn't feel they should have to start their own business, shouldn't think they have to own their business. They should be comfortable in the job they have. Us as black African Americans, the question I want to ask you guys is this: do you feel like there is something that is systematically telling us that we shouldn't own our own business, that we should be comfortable with what someone's given us?
I think one of the problems is when I was growing up, it was I had a gym teacher named Mr. Holland, and he owned a liquor store.
Mm.
But within that neighborhood, you had three or four other liquor stores that were owned by foreigners,
Mm.
and the folks in our community would not go and spend their money with Mr. Holland because they thought that his prices were a little more expensive
Mm.
than the other liquor stores. So they would walk blocks just to go to this liquor store and spend their money to the point where Mr. Holland's business it went out of business.
Right.
So the one thing we don't do is spend our money within our community, our black dollars within our community, with our black stores, and not necessarily our black stores, but within our community.
Right.
Our money goes out to the malls.
Right.
It's not exchanging hands.
Right. Circulating in the community.
It's not circulating
Right.
within the business. With in the
Right.
community.
Right.
So I just think that's terrible, man. So
Mm.
I think we are at times our own worst enemies.
Absolutely. Mr. Dorsey?
No, I think it's actually I'm thinking of this in two parts. The question, and I do agree with Mr. Ryder. I was thinking about the two parts. The first part is that I think number one, when we look in the mirror, we don't think too highly of ourselves.
Hmm.
So when I look at, when I look at another African American, whether it's a man or a woman, if I don't feel too good about myself and they look like me, I'm typically not probably going to think very highly of them. But the other thing I want to say too is, and I think it's just as important as the first point, we also have to make sure that whatever business or product that we have or we're selling, we have to make sure that we're worthy of that support too.
Okay.
So I mean, because a lot of times all we say, my people won't spend their dollars with me. They won't patronize my business. But we have to look in the mirror and say, well, wait a minute now. Are we exhibiting behavior that's worthy
Hmm.
of their? I mean, if and I have to make sure that I'm not trying to beat
Right.
my people. Also, I have to
Right.
make sure that no, go ahead, please. yeah,
Forgive me. I guess the one problem that I had, uh, I know of black businesses that hired people within the community to work in these places. But when you look around in your community now, you have a lot of foreigners who own these businesses, but not one person from your community is working in these stores. They got everything that a black person could buy. They got a store on one side and everything for your hair on the other side
Mm.
within the same building. But yet, not one black person or anyone from that community, white or black, is working in that business.
Can I step in on that one real quick? All right. I got to argue to differ on that. Only on one occasion do I know of something different. That I'm not. I don't know if either one of you are familiar with North Market Street in Wilmington, Delaware. Um, they have a store called Quality's. It's a sub and steak shop. And one of the things I feel like it's necessary that I bring that to attention to give credit where credit's due. Um, Throughout the last 15 years of visiting that store, one of the things I noticed is they hire young black males to work in that sub shop. They from the community, from the area, they hire young black males. It's an Asian ran sub shop, but they have actual black males that actually work in there cooking and such things. Also, G&P restaurant, another store on Market Street. They actually have their more of Italian, I believe, descent. They have actually black people from the community, and most of these people have criminal records, so they can't get a job anywhere else, and they have them actually working at a restaurant. So I agree with you on most cases. You do have these foreign stores and companies coming into the neighborhood that don't hire black people, but I just felt the need to give credit to the few that definitely do it. So it's G&P sub shop and Quality sub shop in Wilmington, Delaware that definitely does hire black males. Now I know you gotta step in and say something, but before you do that, I just want to make one more point. I agree with you on another thing. I want to give my listeners something to think about here. Go to Philadelphia, go to New York, major cities. They have Chinatown. Here's my challenge to all my listeners, everybody's listening to this podcast. Go to Chinatown. Come back to me and tell me how many black stores you see there. How many Indian stores you see in Chinatown? Irish, Italian. Come on, anything. Throw something out there. Show me how many stores are in that community. Go into Little Italy. Show me how many black stores, how many Chinese stores that's in them communities. So answer this question for me. Why is it in the black community you can find all these things? I can find an Italian store in the black community. I can find an Asian store in the black community. Find a Chinese store in the black community. But why is it when you go into these communities, they're not allowing not only us, but other um, races to come into their neighborhood and put up businesses? We gotta start doing some soul searching and ask ourselves some serious questions. What's wrong with this picture? I'm sorry, Mr. Ryder. I know you wanted to say something, but I'm sorry I had to bring up that point.
No, I agree with you with a lot of that. And I just wanted to say, I guess the stores that I am really talking about are the stores that are around your neighborhood,
Hmm.
so to speak.
Right,
Where a lot of people don't have vehicles and they can't get to the supermarket,
right.
but yet they'll constantly walk to that store
Hmm.
within your community 4 or 5 times a day, whether it's a liquor store or a small grocery store,
Hmm.
and spend their money for that high price stuff they got in there.
Mm.
but yet they won't even let you go for a penny. And if you pay for
Absolutely.
something for 99 cents, they don't even want to give you your penny back. It's a problem.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I know. I know, and I experienced that actually. I guess it was last week, and again, I'm not going to say the store I experienced it in, but it was uh, a Japanese store, and I got some food for the family and myself, and I was due to get 3 cents change back,
Right.
and the person behind the register just kept it.
Mm.
So I said, excuse me, sir. I believe I'm supposed to get some money back. So first he was saying, well, no, you gave me this and I gave you that, and I said, wait a minute. I do believe that I'm supposed to get 3 pennies back.
Hmm.
It wasn't about the 3 pennies. It was
Right.
about the respect.
Right.
So I said, and so then he shook it. He kind of smiled a little. He shook his head like, yeah, you're right, you were. So and
Hmm.
and he gave me the 3 cents, and I just said, it's all right. I said, it's all right. I said, thank you, and
Right.
kept on going. But to me, it wasn't about the 3 cent. It was about the respect of where you can at least ask me, do I want my change, or just give it to me and let me say whether
You can keep the change or not.
exactly.
Absolutely.
But I think that honestly, Alan, I think it's a mentality with us. I think it's just about our mentality,
Mm.
and I think that we have to, before we start. I also don't want us to get ahead of ourselves. I think first we got to go back to the basic fundamentals
Hmm.
of teaching our
Kids.
young kids, our brothers and sisters, young little brothers and sisters, our babies. We
Mm.
have to go back to teaching them the fundamentals of of who they are
Right.
and how they're supposed to behave. I mean, we have to go back to teaching them to love their brothers and sisters of
Absolutely.
all races,
Absolutely.
and and make sure that we get back to teaching them. Listen, um, respecting your elder,
Hmm.
respecting all people.
Hmm.
All life is valuable.
Right.
When they start getting a little older, we have to get into. I mean, we have to get in and teach them at a young age. When you're introduced to somebody, look a man in the eye and give him a firm handshake.
Right.
I mean, we have to get back to the basic before you can graduate to businesses and all this other stuff. You got to go back to the beginning, man, and make
Right.
sure the foundation is tight.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and
Absolutely.
I'm gonna tell you something. We dropped the ball. I mean, not necessarily your generation, but me and
Mm.
Mr. Rogers found it. Generation, we dropped the ball.
Yes, sir.
Mm.
I
Yes, sir.
mean,
Mm.
and we have to be honest with ourselves and stop pointing the finger at everybody else
Absolutely.
and look in the mirror and say, you know what, we own this. Now we have to work
Mm.
at fixing it.
Right.
And and again, we have to get back to showing them. Listen, depending on where you're going,
Mm.
you have to look the part. I
Absolutely.
mean, you have to look like you can. I mean, you gotta. I mean, when you're going for a job or you going to talk to somebody about a business proposal,
Hmm.
man, you gotta at least dress and act like you care about yourself and what you want to
Absolutely.
sell them.
I agree with
Absolutely.
you.
I mean, let's
Mm.
stop. I mean, let's just get real.
Yes. Yes.
I mean,
Yes. Well put. Very well put.
Yes.
Yes. Put a tie on. Pull your pants up. You know what I mean? Just
Put a belt on.
groom. Yeah. Put a belt on. Make
I mean, come
make
on.
yourself look presentable when you go, so they feel like you're representing their company and they can put you out front and be proud. Show pride in yourself before somebody else can show pride in you. Show that you care about yourself. I agree with you. You said that you feel like your generation dropped the ball. Um, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I feel like my generation is dropping the ball. Why I say that is I looked at my wife last night and I said something to her. I said, since I started doing this podcast, which has been about 2-3 months ago, I said I've been noticing something. I've never been so wrong in my life about people. What I mean by that is I've been talking to people, I've been meeting with people, having conversations with different people, and I'm speaking on more of my age range, which I'm 34 years old and a little bit older. I'm like, I've never seen so many immature people in my life. And not only is it immature people, but these people have kids. They have children. And I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking about these conversations. I'm asking myself, what are you teaching your child? What are you what impression are you leaving on your child, and what impression is he or she going to leave on this world when it's all said and done? We started this conversation with talking about Fidel Castro and the the mark he left on this world. You gotta wonder what kind of mark are our children going to really leave on this world? With my generation, I'm looking at it and I say, we don't have fathers. We don't have fathers. We don't have mothers, and the streets are raising them. I had a conversation with someone who said their baby father doesn't have time to help their son with his homework. He doesn't have time to discipline him. I want to ask you guys something. Both of you are fathers. You're a father. You're a father. Of course, I'm a father. How is it that in the black community, and I'm not sure, I can't speak on the Caucasian or any other community, why is it that we have that pass to say that we don't want to be parents?
I never said that I didn't want to be a parent.
Mm-hmm.
I always said that I want to be a better parent than what my father was to me.
Mm-hmm.
My father was absent in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Although we had a very good relationship until the day he died. That was my man. I loved him, never disrespected him.
Right.
But I can count on my hand how many times that we were actually in each other's presence.
Right.
You know, and I'll be 52 years old. My
Mm-hmm.
birthday. So uh, um, I can say this: some of what my father went through, I went through.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, whether it was not having a job or being embarrassed about even going around some of your children because you don't have the money to do certain things with them. Although, money's not everything. Probably in the kid's eyes, he just wants your time.
Right.
But having child support on your back, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and amongst some other things, what my life was like,
Right.
dealing with drug addiction,
Right.
that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So for some of my children, even my son Zion, who's here now, he's not around me enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because first of all, I have a lot of kids,
Right.
and I pay child support, and I have to go to work. So most of my time is me going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I do understand that I still need to make time for JoJo, my grandkids,
Mm-hmm.
uh, Zion, and it's just a little tough. And,
Right.
dealing with some ailments that I have, and I'm really not trying to make no excuse, but those are some of the things that, um, and I really want to speak for myself, that prevented me from going around and being with my children the way that I wanted to. Although I raised three of my daughters by myself, you know.
But you see, and the thing about that is, you should be applauded for what you do, and I mean that with all sincerity. You should be applauded what you do because one of the things I personally experienced as a father of two, I adopted. I'm actually in the process of adopting me and my wife's nephew, and that will be my second child. Um, we not as fathers and us that put in the work every day, there for the doctor's appointments, there for when our child's sick, go to work, come home, and take care of, raise our child, whether it's you raising, being a single parent, raising three daughters, or you raising your daughter and your son. We're not applauded enough for what we do, and a lot of the attention goes to the fathers who don't do the work, and the fathers that do put in that time, put in that work for their children, make the sacrifices, don't get applauded enough. So personally, on the Ordinary People podcast, I would like to applaud both of you gentlemen and thank you for what you do and what you do for your children because, like I said, it's not applauded enough, and we need as a community to applaud more of our fathers who take that time. Mr. Dorsey, when I spoke to you on the podcast, you talked about losing your job and how it made you feel. But what I respected about you, and I said it on the podcast, was at any point you could have just gave up on life. And what I'd say to people when I talk to them now, I refer back to your story a lot now, and say this man didn't do that. He found a way to keep going, and it. When I say that it helped a lot of people, I want to personally say it even helped me with my podcast. It helped me with my podcast, helped me with my business. Where what, I went into my manager's office and I said, what, we're creators. So if there's not an opportunity for me to grow, we can create one. Not only that, every time I ran into an issue, a snag, where I didn't know where to go, and I thought about you. Use the tools that you have around you. Grab that rake, grab that lawnmower, use the tools around you. It was so profound what you said. It was amazing what you said. And I just want to speak on it again because I feel the importance of listeners listen to what these gentlemen are saying. You can learn something, and this it works. I have to say, listening to your words helped me. It
Thank
helped me personally. Also, Mr. Ryder, listen to your podcast. A lot of things you said when you touched on drug addiction. I run into a lot of people, both at work and personal life, that have family members that deal with drug addiction. Like I said, I'm adopting my nephew. His mother's dealing with drug addiction. I don't want to pretend like I understand the mind of a person that dealt with drug addiction. My father dealt with drug addiction. I don't understand what he went through, but after listening to and talking to you, I have a different view on people who are drug addiction. I have appreciation for people who overcome it, and I'm more patient with it. And when people come to me and talk to me about drug addiction, and it's not to promote my podcast, the first thing I say is you need to listen to that episode. Because if you walk in front of you from that episode and don't completely understand what that person's going through, then the problem is not with them, the problem is with you. So I want to say to you, thank you. Thank you. Because you also helped me in my life and to understand and not stereotype or look at a person who's dealing with drug addiction a certain type of way or to judge them. But better yet, maybe have patience with them. See things through their point of view, see things through their lens. So I thank you for giving us that window to your life and letting us see that. I thank both of you gentlemen for being fathers and for what you guys do. I truly appreciate it. And I don't mean to go off course real quick, but I believe in giving people their flowers while they're still alive to be able to smell them. And I wanted to both get you both here and thank you for what you contribute to my podcast, to my life, and to the life of many other people. So I just wanted to make sure I said that and got that, be able to say it to you in person. Thank you both. You are two extraordinary men, and you represent what the Ordinary People podcast stands for. So I appreciate you too. But to continue on with the conversation that we're having, I'm sorry, Mr. Dorsey,
Yeah,
you want to
no,
speak in on that?
yeah, I just wanted to say that I wanted to also commend Mr. Ryder, um, raising three daughters alone,
Thank you. Thank you.
and you know, and I know that just imagining what you could have went through to be able to overcome, addiction and get to a point of stability and empowerment. It's phenomenal. I mean, because I mean, let's face it.
Still working on some stuff.
But it's got to be sheer will by the grace of God that you're able to do the things you do, and I mean, it's unbelievable. And I agree with you, Alan. I mean, if anybody within the sound of our voice,
Mhm.
can hear us, please um, do yourself, you know, justice,
Absolutely.
and check out if you're dealing with any one of these issues. Check out Mr. The Ordinary People's Podcast with episode 1 with Mr. Ryder. Check out my segment if it's
Yes.
something that you feel you can get from it. I mean, we're open. We're willing to be open vessels to
Absolutely.
let God, to share, let God's magic work in your life. I
Uh,
mean, we want to do that. That's why we're here. All three of us are here because we honestly want to give to you, the listeners. So please
Absolutely.
take advantage of it.
Absolutely. And
Thank
we
you.
thank you so much for that. We're going to keep on going. We want to get to the next segment, which is police brutality. Now, we're going to talk about police brutality on two different point of views. I want to talk about it on both sides. In one case, a police officer in Detroit was gunned down and killed um, while patrolling a campus in Detroit, Michigan. On the other case, just recently, a young gentleman, black man, was killed in Chicago. The police officer said he was armed, but according to reports from the police officers and the news media, they have yet to find the gun. There's no has no gun. The police department has said released a statement saying they have yet to find a gun on his person or in the area of where he was killed. The young man was killed at. So there was no gun recovered. With that being said, we have a serious issue right now where police officers are being murdered, young black males are being hunted down. I want to ask you guys a question. First, how do you feel about it? Anyone want to start?
Yeah, I'll start, Alan. I have a few different viewpoints on it. The first thing I want to say is, you know, we have to be careful what we put our energy into.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be careful what we buy into that's put out there on the media. Are there cases of this happening? Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but so we observe it. We do what we can, each one teach one, to
Right.
try to make sure it doesn't happen to the next generation, or anybody for that matter. We can have a great effect on making sure that doesn't happen. But again, we have to be careful where we put our energy, because what you put your energy to is what you're going to get.
Mm.
So we have to, I mean, we have to definitely hold our law enforcement people. We have to hold them accountable.
Absolutely.
But we have to be careful that we don't sentence the ones who don't deserve it, because we need our law enforcement
That's
people.
right.
We need them.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of good ones, and I've encountered a lot of good ones. Now I've encountered a few that I don't want to encounter again. Don't
Mm-hmm.
get me wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but I've encountered much more good ones. I mean, when I was in my late teens, at that time I had a pretty nice it's like it was a sports car. I mean, I had a pretty good job at the time, and at the time before I lost it, and it was I mean, I was always getting pulled over. And I mean, and when I say pulled over, not just pulled over in question, but it got to the point where they asked me to get out the car, and I knew the position. And
Right.
I know you viewers can't see me, but I was spread eagle on the car, and look, my stuff is in my left hand side pocket. It
Right.
was a routine,
Right.
so I know what it feels like.
Right.
But here's the thing: number one, I knew I didn't have anything to hide,
Mm-hmm.
and I just gave the officers respect, and I didn't have a problem as far as any kind of brutality or any kind of or anything that I felt was going to endanger my life. But again, I think we have to teach our children,
Mm-hmm.
the younger generation, and people who are, maybe not, maybe they don't know.
Right.
Teach them, listen, how to behave when you're stopped. Should we have to go through all that extra stuff? No.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is that we have to understand that we have officers who may not have, now they're supposed to be professionally trained and all of that, but the bottom line is you do have officers that maybe they don't have experience dealing with different races.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they grew up just dealing with with their own a particular race in a particular community.
Right.
So maybe they're uncomfortable, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe they are nervous when they go into territory that they're not, and dealing with different races that they're not accustomed to. So we have to keep all that in mind, and that's why I'll say it again. Make sure that your energy's right. Make sure that that officer knows that. Listen, I'm, I'm. What is it that you need from me, officer?
Right.
If now here's another important thing I want to bring up is crucial. If you, and this is just my opinion, if that officer stops you
Mm-hmm.
and you know that you didn't do anything wrong, and you know that, wait a minute, he had, I'm right in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the time to prove you are right. So now, comply, be respectful. Wouldn't hurt you to even be nice.
Right.
But guess what? When you get out of that situation safely, if you want to fight it all the way to the Supreme Court, please do. But that is not the right time to prove.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Mr.
I mean,
You want to step in and say something?
Yeah. Um, one bad apple doesn't spoil the bunch.
Mm.
I mean, as far as you have good police officers, lots of good police officers, and you have good people within the community. So if you're a drug dealer,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just throwing this out there, if you're a drug dealer, you sell drugs, and you're in front of people's homes, and and they call the police on them. The police is just doing their job.
Absolutely.
You know, they actually work for us. We pay their salaries.
Right.
You know, now you do have some police officers that need more training.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because they don't know how to get along with or deal with a person of color.
Mhm.
Um, uh, but for us to actually fire a weapon down on a cop because he's patrolling the block, our neighborhoods, trying to keep our kids safe, and and for some of us, we don't even care about the kids running around and playing within the community, within the neighborhood. What are the police supposed to do?
Mhm.
What are we going to do? Because what's going to end up happening is we're going to be back in the cowboy days.
Which we none of us want. I mean,
You know, I mean, I don't know if that makes sense to you,
no,
but
it absolutely does. It makes sense, and the reality of the situation is, sorry, but
I just wanted to say I was working one day, man. I clearly saw, I had my truck parked at my site, and I happened to look up the block, and I work in, pretty rough neighborhoods,
right,
and I literally see a young man firing up the street in broad daylight, man. Where you can see the fire coming from the gun and everything, in broad daylight, with no concern about who that bullet is going to hit.
mm,
You got a daycare right to the right of
mm.
you. You know,
It,
Yeah, I
it's
got.
mind-boggling, man.
And I'm sorry.
okay,
I got
go,
to
go
jump.
ahead,
I got to jump in
go
on
ahead.
this thing, man. I got to. Now that's something that I get very. I get kind of. I'm passionate about because I agree with him that has got to stop. See, at
Absolutely,
some point, preferably the beginning, before it even gets started, we have to understand. Listen, stop expecting the police, the mayor, your county people to do your job for you.
right.
I mean, this is our community.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wherever community you live, that's your community. Nobody should be able to come in your community and cause havoc.
Right.
If you're a man, one of the it's just my opinion, and we might have covered this on another episode of the podcast, the other episode. If you're a man, one of the basic jobs in your one of the basic jobs you have as a man,
Hmm.
besides taking care of your family,
Hmm.
is making sure that your community is orderly.
Right.
Order in your community. That's what a man does. A man's
Absolutely,
job is to make sure there's order in the community.
absolutely.
Now he can't do it by himself, but he can't do it by himself. I mean,
Right.
he needs. I mean, and because people say, oh, well, I don't want to be retaliated against. That's why you need the whole block, two
Mm.
blocks. I don't care how many. You need support because because it's not that many of them anyway.
Right. But see,
And then you got to understand, if you can get the leader, the rest of them gonna fall in line anyway.
But the thing is that these young people don't care.
I'm not gonna say that they don't care, and you know what? In most cases, they don't care. But just to touch on, jump in on this, you said a word there, and it stuck out to me. You said retaliation. Here's the issue, okay? Both sides. Okay, you said bad apple don't spoil a bunch. Here's the problem. People in our community promoting stop snitching, don't snitch. Where does that make sense at when something happens to your family member? Does that stop snitching campaign make sense? For instance, personally, my cousin was murdered earlier this year. My cousin was murdered.
Mhm.
I heard so many people talk about how much they cared about it, put all these pictures on Facebook, and you know who did it, but you won't go say anything.
The
But you
memorial.
say you don't snitch, but then you have an issue where in our community, I'm gonna speak, and you know what? Call me Uncle Tom, call me what you want, but I'm gonna just say what I feel. In our community, you say, well, the police should step up and point out the bad apples in the police. Well, yeah, we should point out the bad apples in our community who's causing havoc on us, who is preventing our grandmother from going to her mailbox to pick up her check, preventing our children from being able to go out front and play because they decided that they want to be cowboys and shoot up the neighborhood. The people who are preventing your property value from going up because they just want to stand out there and loiter selling drugs all day. It's both of you gentlemen spoke on something very profound. Yes, we have to be men and police our own community. You can't expect someone, and I previously said this in the extraordinary opinion segment. You can't expect someone to come in and clean your house, to get your house in order. I can't expect another man to come to my house and organize my house, supply order to my house. We can't expect that. That's not a reality. That's not a reality. Do we need the police? Absolutely. Are we giving the police a pass for shooting unarmed black people? No. No. We're not giving them a pass. We're not giving them a pass. We're not saying it's okay. What we are saying is, yes, we need police. We need right police. But once again, like I say with the election, I'm going to say it with the police, you have to hold people accountable for their actions. What do I mean by that? If you have an issue with something you buy, you call a store. If you have an issue with how employee talk to you, you call and speak to a manager, right? We enforce those ideas when it involves our money, right? It involves our personal respect. But what about when it involves our safety, the safety of your children? If you feel that police officer is not treating you the right way, I'm going to agree with Mr. Dorsey. Yes, follow up on it. Follow a report. Don't stop there. Keep pressing it until you see results, but it can't be one person. It has to be a community of people who stick together and make that change. The other issue, we talk about this Black Lives Matter movement, and we talk about all this stuff, and I touched on it. I said, I don't have an issue with the Black Lives Matter movement. I don't have an issue with it. What I have an issue with is, what's the end result? We had Occupy Wall Street. Where is that now? Where is it? Where's the change with banks and big businesses? See, I have a problem with hashtags. I have a problem with organizations who come in and they fight, they put on a good fight and chant that they want change, but don't follow through with change. See, I'm going to break you guys down history. I'm sorry, gentlemen, for taking over, but I want to break down some history right here. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X. What all them names have in common? During the Civil Rights era, they didn't chant hashtag for change. They died for it. They died for it. They fought for change. They fought for the rights that you have today. And so many people who we don't name and we've forgotten about died for change. It wasn't a hashtag. It wasn't something popular. What they taught us all is that change is a possibility. Change is a possibility. When we talking about dealing with police brutality, the issues in our community, change is a possibility. What they also taught us is you're going to have to work for change. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to fight for it. And I don't mean get up there and shoot people, because Martin Luther King was peaceful. Yes, he died. But he died fighting for me to have the right I have. You to have the right you have. Malcolm X stood for it. Did he make mistakes and errors in judgment at the beginning? Yes, but he progressed. He grown. He matured. And as he matured, he's seen the light. But ultimately, he died for the changes. Rosa Parks took a stance in a time and a place where she could have died for taking a stand, for simply sitting on a bus. For all the people who are out here and you're complaining about the issues you're dealing with, ask yourself this question when you walk out the door. What are you going to do to make a change in the issues we deal with our race? With the police. If you feel the police need to be trained, we need to stand and not shoot police. Let me tell you something. Those black unarmed people did not deserve to die. But on the same perspective, those police officers in Texas and Detroit didn't die. They have family. The cops in Texas didn't have anything to do with the shooting in Chicago. They didn't have a shooting in Delaware. They were nowhere near it. I'm going to say it again. You can't penalize someone else for the actions of a person, one rogue person. You can't penalize every police officer for a few rogue police officers. You can't penalize every black person for a few rogue black people. But like Mr. Dorsey said, like Mr. Ryder said, it's time for us to be men. Stand up in our community and make a difference. And if you're not about making a difference and a positive change, if all you're looking for is attention and a hashtag, then I'm going to politely ask you, take a seat in the back of the bus and lead the people with big boy pants, big women pants, let them step up and handle and make a change.
Wow. Wow.
Go ahead, man.
Alan,
You've
that was very eloquently put, man. That was yeah. You on the money with that, Alan. I tell you, man. I tell you, I'm proud to be a part of your life, and I'm proud to be on this segment, man, because you really spoke some truth. The only thing I was going to basically say is there was two things I was thinking. One, with the no snitching situation, again, I think it's got to. I'm gonna say it again. I think it's got to be. We got to start with the youth, and we have to recondition their mentality, their way of thinking,
Absolutely.
to basically listen, take responsibility within your community, in communities everywhere. First, we got to explain to them the basics, which is the definition, the real definition of snitching.
Absolutely.
First we gotta break that down to 'em.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard a few other people say it. This is what my definition and others' definition that I know of the word snitching. Snitching is when the three of us do a crime together,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and one of us is caught,
Right.
and then I
Yes.
dime out
Mm-hmm.
one or the other two people or both
Right.
to save my skin. That was supposed to be the initial definition of snitching.
Absolutely.
Snitching is not if you're sitting on your porch and some idiot comes in there shooting at somebody else on your block and kills an innocent kid. You're
Mhm.
not supposed to make them accountable. That's not snitching. That's being a
Absolutely.
man making sure that your community stays safe.
Absolutely.
That's not snitching. So we have to, I mean, first we have to break it down to them what snitching is and what snitching isn't,
Mhm.
where it originated from,
Mhm.
and the real definition. So they have to be clear on that first. And then
Mhm.
we have to go into, basically reconditioning the younger generation to really have pride and love themselves so that they can love
Mhm.
others.
Mhm.
And the other thing I was going to say is in terms of um, people uniting for change and then basically not following through.
Absolutely.
It's something you said, and I agree wholeheartedly. And that is, see, these are the effects, but the cause is that people really, you have to ask yourself, why is this person alongside of you uniting with you?
Mhm.
See, to you, you might say, okay, well, we're fighting because we want to make a positive change, not only for our families, but for all people.
Mhm.
That person may not feel that way.
Mm.
That may not be their agenda.
Right.
That may not be what they want at all.
Mhm.
See, they could have some other selfish motive
Mhm.
behind uniting with you. Don't know had nothing to do with the greater good for all.
Absolutely.
So first we gotta again we gotta look in the mirror. I mean, look, it is what it is. We have to make sure that we know who we're dealing with here,
Right.
and we just can't assume that everybody thinks the way we think.
Absolutely.
That's something that my mother-in-law said that to me before. We were talking about a situation, my wife's mother, and I was saying basically, without getting into the story, I was saying to her, I wouldn't do what that person did to somebody else.
Mhm.
And she said, but Bruce, that's you.
Mm.
She said, look, everybody don't think like that.
Mm.
See, we tend to think that everybody thinks the way we think.
Mhm.
And a lot of times we'd be surprised just what that person is thinking. Or I'm a be even more truthful
Mhm.
and say that most people don't think at all.
Absolutely.
They never do and say
Just
some of the
react.
things. They never do and say some of the things they do if they were thinking.
Right.
Remember that we talked about
Yeah,
that.
we talked
those
about that.
statistics.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know, Mr. Ryder, if you've heard it.
Yeah.
2% of the people actually think. 3% of the people actually think that they think. And 95% of the people would rather die than think.
Mhm.
And those statistics can be broken down as the 95% is what? They're the sheep.
Mhm.
They're the herd, for lack of a better
Right.
word.
Right.
They do what everybody else does.
Mhm.
The 3% of the people who think they think, those are the people who confuse mental activity with actually thinking. So they think just because they got up and got dressed and went down to the store or went to work that they actually thinking.
Right.
No, you got mental activity going on, yeah, but you don't have to think to do that.
Right.
The subconscious
That's
mind is
repetitive.
at work. You know how to get to work.
Right.
You don't have to think about that.
Yeah.
That's the 3%. They think that they think. The
Mhm.
2% of the people, the successful ones, they exercise critical thinking.
Mhm.
They exercise their ability to think. They exercise their ability to create. They exercise their ability to make concrete and firm, persistent decisions and consistent decisions for themselves.
Mhm.
They exercise that ability. I mean, they don't just let what their neighbor says, cause them to act. I mean, if you want to be a surgeon, You don't go. I mean, you don't go see a darn bartender. I mean, come on. I mean,
Well put, well put.
I mean,
Let Mr. Ryan jump in on this.
No, I
What's your
just
feelings
wanted to
towards it,
tell.
man?
I just wanted to tell a story. One day I was at work, and this is true, and we were going to get a part for a truck on off of Governor Prince, and as we parked the truck, we saw a group of teenagers, 15, 16 years old, beating on a prostitute.
Hmm.
I mean, hitting her with rocks, spitting on her, punching her, kicking her. I mean, everything you can think of, everything that you can imagine,
Hmm.
they were doing to this young lady. So my coworker, he gets out first and say, "Hey, look, you guys gonna hurt her," and they didn't care. Uh, then I got out, and I tried to sit there, but
Hmm.
I just could not sit there any longer and watch what was going on. So I get out, and the young man throws a rock. It skips off the ground and misses her. I catches it before it either hits me in my chest or in my face. Now I'm trying to get her to go into one of the businesses. But the thing that really made me angry was it was other grown men out there who ignored it. And it was some other grown men who pulled up, turned the corner in their vehicles, and the first thing they do is grab their cell phones to record it. Now, once I get the young lady, we get the young lady inside the business.
Hmm.
The young men turned on me,
mm,
started throwing bricks at me to the point wherein I was forced to defend myself.
Hmm.
So the first thing I done was I grabbed a crowbar.
Hmm.
And at first I was on that young man's heels, but I couldn't catch him. Um, the entire time I had guys throwing rocks from behind me, from the side to me, and that was a real scary situation for me because now I'm looking at somebody's kid, and I got a kid their age. Now, make a long story short,
Hmm.
we knew some of the kids' parents,
Hmm.
and my coworker said, "Look, my coworker Andre, man, he's not gonna stand for, getting hit by these rocks that these kids, bricks that these kids are actually throwing at him.
Hmm.
Man, he's gonna handle them."
mm,
And what I said to the parents was, if my 16-year-old is old enough, if he's big enough to get in your face and try to hurt you, physically hurt you, I'm not saying kill him, but I am saying if I can say this, whoop his ass.
Absolutely.
And when he come home, I'ma whoop his ass. I just think, something has to be done with these young people, man. These young people don't fear nothing and they don't respect nothing. Now here's one other thing.
Okay.
This whole fraternity about, you ever seen guys who come out of prison and they know everybody and they giving each other, man, mad love
Mm.
because they've been in prison together?
Right.
Well, nowadays, man, prisons ain't nothing but a business, man. And I don't think a lot of these young guys, these kids know from the time they're in probably, I'm going to say middle school, probably even before that, and the way that they carry on and act, they're already counting them as he going to be in prison one day. They already putting him on a list.
Absolutely.
It's a business.
I can speak on that. Wow, you touched on a lot of things. First, let me just say this. All right. Sorry I have to say this, but you said there were men that recorded and watched as this woman get beaten.
Absolutely.
Let me correct you on that. There is no man that will ever stand and watch a woman get beaten. On previous segments, you might heard me say it. All women are queens. It should be treated as such. I don't care what mistakes, choices they make. You're not a man if you put your hands on a woman, if you sit there and watch a woman get beaten or hurt like that. I'm sorry if the first instinct is to pick up your phone and record somebody being hurt. In my personal opinion, you're not a man. That's just my personal opinion. So, you know what? I'm not apologizing. That's how I feel. Now, as far as you said, we talked about young kids growing up and them being in jail. Personal opinion, personal story. What that is. I was in elementary school, and one of the things that turned me around was a Caucasian teacher taught me that. I got into a fight with a Caucasian male in school. I had anger issues. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I got into a fight with this kid not because he did anything to me. I'm not even gonna lie to you. He didn't do anything to me. He didn't do anything to provoke me to fight him. I was pissed off about my father not being around, and peer pressure was. Guy was way bigger than me, by the way. I was a skinny, scrawny kid. My friends egging me on, like, yeah, you're ready to leave school. I'm about to transfer school. I'm leaving my old neighborhood. Yeah, you're ready to leave. You should do something to this guy. And just egging me on. You're scared of him. Kid did nothing. Waiting in the hallway. Long story short, did some severe damage to the kid. I was in school suspension. The teacher told me, said, look, they got a prison cell waiting for you. And they got another thing waiting for you. They have a grave dug out waiting for you. You continue on going the way you're going, you'll find yourself there sooner than you would like to be. And I had another teacher tell me all the time. He said, get used to saying this. Do you like fries with that? He said it to me often. Those two things stuck with me every day of my life. And honestly, I thank both of them for saying what they said. And the reason he said, do you like fries with that, is because he told me, basically was telling me, I'm going to work at McDonald's the rest of my life because I didn't take school seriously. Now, could you say he's wrong for saying it? Possibly, but you know what? I was wrong for not taking school seriously. So, to all my young men out there, I would say this to you: I didn't take school seriously because I didn't see school as an option, or didn't see the options for me in life. Not until I got a little older, I realized, as you said, I could create a lot of opportunities for myself, and there is opportunities that expand past my world. I agree with Mr. Ryder. Prison is a business, and on a later segment, we can get into that. We can get deep into that, and believe me, we're gonna need a whole segment for that. But you have the choice to not fall in that trap and not end up there. Just because somebody set a trap for you, don't mean that you actually have to fall into that trap. Mr. Dorsey spoke on critical thinking. He broke down statistics for you. He told you the statistics. He broke it down to you better than I ever could. If you choose not to walk away from this podcast and still cannot think, then I don't know what to tell you. Mr. Ryder just told you. You have a prison cell waiting for you. And they don't care how long you've been there. They're not worried about feeding you and clothing you, because guess what? They're making a lot more money off of you than they are spending on you. So you might want to take some time. Just take a moment, young men, women, even if you have kids. Just take a moment just to think on what these gentlemen are saying to you. Let it process. Then go pull your kids, sit them down, turn the TV off, turn the tablets off, the phones. Have a conversation with them, explain exactly what these gentlemen are telling you, because they might save your kids' lives. It might save your life. I think it's very important what we're doing here today. I want to thank both of you gentlemen for being here. And before I go, I want to give both of you gentlemen a few minutes to speak on something that you would like to say. Whatever you want to say, the floor is yours. I can give you 2 minutes apiece to speak on whether it's your business or I know, Mr. Ryder, you deal with training people on the reverse to overdose drugs, and you are active in the community with trying to help people get off of fight drug addiction. Mr. Dorsey, I know you work a lot with the youth, and you're also a life coach trying to get people's lives, help people find direction in their lives, and push and motivate them to move in a more positive way. I want to give both of you gentlemen individually at least 2 minutes to talk more about, if you would like, about more of what you do, or talk to listeners about something you would want them to hear.
Okay, my name is Andre Ryder. I am a recovery coach. I'm also a Narcan trainer, and that's for the drug naloxone that reverses the effect of an overdose. Um, Medication is benign, but I guess what I really want to say is, if there's anyone in your family, anyone that you know personally, that is struggling with addiction, drug addiction, you can contact me at 302 or you can contact me by Gmail, by email, Lamont Ryder at gmail.com. That's pretty much it.
Okay, Mr. Dorsey, you got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I first want to thank Mr. Ryder for sharing with us tonight, with me, with you. Great words of wisdom, and I think that, and I also want to commend him what he does with the addiction and helping people, because I tell you, it's just we're really in trouble.
Hmm.
Not only in this country but around the world, we're in trouble,
Yes,
and we need as many people that's willing to serve as we can get.
absolutely.
Alan, thank you, because without this podcast, we wouldn't have another channel
Hmm.
to be able to give this information in real time to so many people who need it. Um,
Yes.
and as far as myself, the only thing I really want to say is to the listeners out there um, who may be victim to some of the issues and problems that we're talking about tonight. Listen, we need you. Don't listen. People are always going to say negative things about you. They're going to talk about you. They're always going to try to make you feel inferior.
Hmm.
That's a personal insecurity within themselves. Listen,
Absolutely.
we need you. You have talents, gifts, and abilities beyond anything that you could ever comprehend because you're made in God's image.
Yes.
And you have to understand that. Think about that. We need you. Don't give up on yourself. You have people, Mr. Ryder. If you suffer from addiction, he's sitting there ready to help you and work with you. He gave you his number.
Hmm.
You can call me. I'm a personal development life coach. I help people transform their lives from the inside out. Sometimes I'm even willing to do pro bono stuff to help people if I think that they're serious. You got to be serious. You can't waste my time. I wouldn't waste yours. But if you're serious, I'm willing to do stuff pro bono to help. And for those of you who don't know what pro bono means, that means it's free.
Absolutely.
So listen, Bruce Dorsey. I'm a personal development life coach. I help people transform their lives from the inside out. I love to work with you or any organization or anyone who's sincerely willing to create positive change. You can get a hold of me. My cell phone number is area code 302-293-0183. That's 302-293-0183. And you can go to my website at www.createlifecoaching.org. Thank you.
I thank you both, gentlemen, for sharing that information. I'm going to have Mr. Dorsey and Mr. Ryder's information, contact information, in the subject line of this podcast. So if you are interested in reaching out to either one of these gentlemen, whether you dealing with drug addiction and that you need help, or if you're serious about making a change in your life, you're looking for a personal development coach, life coach, you can reach out to Mr. Dorsey. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, again for blessing us with your presence and for your time. I really appreciate it personally on behalf of the Ordinary People Podcast. You two gentlemen definitely are extraordinary guests and extraordinary gentlemen, people. Um, this is another episode. What you can take away from this episode is we need all of our men to stand up. We need our men to stand up and be fathers, be men in our community. We need our women to stand up, be women, be mothers, be the women in our community, lead our community into the right direction. We need to stop focusing on the problem and start focusing on the solution. Ask yourself a question. No, don't even ask yourself this question. If you want to be a hashtag, if you're doing it just for attention, for a few likes on social media, please sit down. Just have a seat. There's plenty more things you can do to get the attention. Let the people who want to truly lead, inspire, change, and make a difference, let them stand up. Let their voice be heard and not be drowned out by all the noise that surrounds us. We ask you, not for the sake of me, not for the sake of these two gentlemen, but for the sake of our children who are still growing up and still have a chance at changing life. We discussed the election. We can't change what happened, okay? We can't be upset about it. There's nothing that changed in your life. You have the power to make change in your life. So rather who is president, it's up to you. to make the right decisions and push your life in the right direction. When election time comes up again, make your voice heard, speak up, and let them know that you will not be quiet in the face of all this injustice, poverty, financial ruin that you're dealing with. I want to invite you to check out more episodes of Ordinary Podcast, the Andre Ryer episode, where Mr. Ryer talks about drug addiction, how to overcome it, and how to appreciate and respect the people who are dealing with it. I also want you to check out the Bruce Dorsey episode, where Mr. Dorsey, personal development life coach, tells you about how his journey of overcoming not having a job and creating his own business and creating a foundation for his life. Also, check out the Extraordinary Opinion segment where I talk about the 2016 election, why you should vote, why you should let your voice be heard. Also, the Extraordinary Opinion segment where I talk about where is there any good men or good women out there. It's You can check out all these podcast episodes on YouTube, as well as this one. I want to thank you for your time. I want to say God bless you all. I will have both these gentlemen back at some point on this podcast, maybe on the next episode. You never know. Um, I definitely want to have these two gentlemen back. I want to thank you once again. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time and for your kind words of motivation and inspiration. My name is Alan the Great, and this is the Ordinary People Podcast. Peace.